I don't know.
They have to generate a tally that can be observed after the polls close.
Yeah, seeing the Fulton County who was, they were voting on.
Oh, yeah. And so does Zach. And Zach's 42 now. 43 now. No, 40. 41.
Thank you.
I don't manage this.
Sadly, we,
You need a.
yeah, need a wall adapter. Let me see if I can find one.
We should have one in that box back there.
Oh, okay. Cool.
We're going to get together midweek. It's like,
The box back here or underneath?
Should be.
Well, I have not been to the 8 o'clock service in years. But short and sweet.
Well, I'll check with Barry.
And then just
I'm sure there's one around somewhere.
Oh, I hate this. I hate not having a key. Do you have a key? Everyone have a key?
yeah.
Okay.
Set that thing from this side at some of these tables.
No, that they both work with the interior.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I guess that's, they put a cover
Hang in there. Hang in there.
underneath.
Ken, are you going to join us at center stage?
You just can't leave me here. I mean, you gotta stay with
I was
us.
designated to be there, but I was not there,
If that's the case, I'll come keep you company so Ken can go up there and
so I said I was designated to be there, but I wasn't there, so I'm not going up there. It's not as close.
Yeah,
It's got a lot of detail.
well, we ended up focusing independent
We went sailing yesterday. Over there. It was a lot. Really cool. I was by myself. It was open. Yes, it was. It's not that 25 miles. Yeah. And it was a long distance race.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like it was going to be there.
Barry's coming with a plug.
Yeah, we saw it. We saw one. Yeah.
Does he have an adapter?
Yeah, he's coming with it.
Does he have what we need?
Oh yeah. Well, the famous one is the Fastnet race.
yes, that's the one, the Fastnet.
Yeah.
And they were talking about.
Here's my-
You're live, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sam, can we use your battery pack? Captain that race.
Oh really? Turner? Yeah. He was.
Will your table go to the floor, John? Your table go down to the floor?
here's the table of that.
Not quite.
So we try.
Well, he was the last chair to defend the American stuff before the next time.
Let's set a chair beside
Oh, I
it.
can
Plug
see
it
it.
in.
I forgot his
All
name.
right.
I know what he's
But
doing.
he lost.
Yeah.
The
Thank you.
The Australians.
And if that won't, we need to use that little, grab that and set it on top of that.
And then
Is there an on? Oh, it's fully charged. Thank you.
Ken keeps this for an emergency.
Yeah, thank you.
Just make sure Ken gets all that back.
there are no rules against that because no one ever, right? Who would ever think of that? It generates money.
And maybe Sarah might want to see if she gets here.
It must have. Yes, it gave less drag. There's less drag. The boat was faster. Connor. His name is Connor. And he still won a couple races.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Good morning and welcome to Adult Forum on this lucky day.
It's a gorgeous day. It's a gorgeous day.
Positive thinking. This morning, we are going to hear from our parishioners who attended the annual council of the Diocese of Atlanta. John, Juliana, tell us what happened.
Well, a whole bunch of people got together in Child's Hall of the Cathedral and talked about a whole bunch of stuff and voted on a few things and went home.
Any questions from
Clarification, complaints?
Was the bookstore any good?
It was a very good turnout, and it was good to be there. In previous years, the annual council has met in other venues around the diocese, and I think for many people, it was a good opportunity to meet this time at the Cathedral of St. Philip. I guess I'll start with just a few takeaways. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there for the whole council meeting because of a sciatica chronic problem that I had that took me out of circulation for a while. But I was encouraged by several things that I heard, and actually sort of excited and challenged by one of the things in particular, which I'll speak to at the end. One of the takeaways that I always look for in annual council meetings is the report on the vitality of the Diocese of Atlanta. And just to share a few of the statistics with you, between 2021 and 2022, we had 116 worshiping communities in the Diocese of Atlanta. That's a very large amount. Many of our dioceses, many of our parishes are rural, as we all know, and that has a lot of opportunities and challenges for us in the diocese. But that's a healthy number, 116. We have about 43,000 members in the Diocese of Atlanta, and that's also a very healthy number, although we're down 4% from the previous year in terms of members in the diocese. Our average Sunday attendance is very encouraging, diocese-wide. It's up 30% in the last year to 8,700. I'm sorry, 8.7 thousand average daily attendance, diocese-wide. And in last year, the giving in dollar terms to our parishes was $3.2 million, and that's up 10%. So we hear a lot about declining numbers and what is the future of the Episcopal Church in the United States and in the diocese. Overall, to me, that overview is very positive in terms of the amount of resources given to the diocese and in terms of the number of our worshiping communities. Attendance levels are only about 62% of what attendance was pre-COVID. So we're struggling to get back. I'm not sure in the statistics that are gathered about attendance whether there's any way to accurately take into account attendance that is virtual. All the parishes have one way or another of communicating with people who don't attend in person, but we're still struggling to reach our pre-COVID in-person attendance. So that was one takeaway I had, the vitality of the diocese. Another takeaway was about the budget. The Diocese of Atlanta is in a sound financial position. And I have statistics that I can pass around on our current expenses and revenues and balance sheet for the diocese, if anybody wants to look at those details. But our accounting expert reported that we are in a very sound position financially in the diocese. And the other good news is that the proposed 2024 budget is in balance without having to draw from resources and revenues from the previous year. So looking forward, our budget is realistic and in balance. And on the budget, I have the whole proposed budget that I can pass around and share with you if you're interested in those details. One of the most exciting things, though, and interesting things that I took away from the meeting is that given the numbers of attendance and financial resources that I just mentioned before, the Episcopal Church in the United States and in the diocese are going to encourage more lay leadership in the operation of the church. And by that, several examples are more of us are going to be called upon to present the Eucharist, do readings, do outreach. Many of the functions that have been that we have relied on clergy and other paid staff members to do in the past are going to be gently and with support delegated to more lay members. And you can just use your imagination at this point about what that means and how that will spell out. But I think it's possibly a wonderful opportunity for lay members of the Episcopal Church to take on more of these roles. For example, in this Eucharistic service at the beginning of the meeting, several young people gave out the Eucharist, and the bishop really encouraged that. And there were readings and presentations about community outreach that are more and more being handled by lay people in the church. So we'll see how all that plays out. One question in our side group, our informal discussion group, came up about what will be the role of EFM across the diocese, and delegating more responsibility in the future to lay leadership. No final answers about that, but anyway, stay tuned. We'll all be called upon for our gifts and talents more in the future. That's about all I have to say.
We sharing the highlights?
Yeah.
And the microphone.
And the microphone.
I can get it off my sweater. There you go.
I don't want to put it too close. Is this good? That's nothing much. How about like that?
Yeah,
Is that
good.
Okay. All right, so for me to highlight, this was Friday afternoon, we had a chance to meet in a committee of our choice. I don't know if anybody has the list of committees, but the one that I chose, not resolutions, but committees. Okay, yeah. So there's 7 committees: Constitution and Canons, Community Ministries, which would be like things like Emmaus House, Holy Comforter. I think even Camp Michael would be one of those. Congregational Vitality, Finance Committee, Global Mission Committee, General Convention Deputies, and Youth and Campus Ministries. So I chose the Congregational Vitality, and it was really interesting to meet with that group. It was sort of facilitated by the person at diocesan level who's responsible for that, and I don't remember her name, I'm sorry, but her point was that their congregations have a certain life cycles from birth to disintegration and death. And so when congregations are in the healthy or stagnant and stale stage, they're stable. And then when it goes from stagnant and stale to decline, it can go from, stability goes into decline and disintegration, which we don't even want to think about it. But there are always things that can be done, even when congregations are healthy, to revitalize things, to keep things vital. And so she talked about ongoing renewal, even when you're in a healthy stage. You need to do things to renew things so that you stay healthy. When you become stagnant and stale, she talked about ongoing renewal and revitalization. And then the decline stage, redevelopment. And even in the disintegration stage, there is outside intervention, mainly from the diocese. So what we did, we had an activity that I thought I would really love for us to, engage in. Actually, it's on my phone here. It's very awkward. Come on. So she talked about developing a clear identity. People who engage in this activity to develop a clear identity of our parish by answering these simple questions. Number 1, what is your deep gladness? So if we have people that come to a meeting and want to work on our identity, think about what is your deep gladness, and to share a time when you had a profound sense of God's presence and connection to our congregation. So people divide into small groups, like 2 or 3, not large groups, to answer those questions. And then there's another one, we didn't really do this. Number 2 is to describe our congregation. And she gave us really basically what it was a group, a long list of adjectives to use to help. So it was this long. It was all these, just a bunch of adjectives, really. So I started going down the list, and I came up with a lot of adjectives. But for me, my deep gladness was at church, the worship, the hymns, the prayers, the feeling of synergy and uplift, and being inspired to a wider view. And I know that doesn't sound very concrete, but I think there's some really wonderful possibilities with this activity. The adjectives I came up with, there's a lot of adjectives: caring, challenging, constant, courageous, dedicated, faithful, focused, friendly, fun-loving, hardworking, helpful, idealistic, independent, many-sided, methodical, and observant. So there was just a whole bunch of adjectives that I came up with. And I would just love for us to engage in something like this as a congregation, because I think from these stories, we can develop a clear identity of who we are and where we want to go. But the idea is, once we know more who we are, to then find a way to move forward. I don't know, I mean, I just get really discouraged when I look around and there are not more people coming to church. And it's just discouraging to me. So this gave me a lot of hope that we can develop some ways to move forward. I don't know if I want to talk about some of the resolutions. I'll do that. Okay. Probably in a better position than me. Any questions?
So what I thought I would follow all that was one thing, just to touch on what John was saying. Sally Olway, who works a lot on congregational vitality, said that there were three things that it seemed to see from research and polling and whatnot in the wider national church, that the church of the future will be more focused on sharing and collaboration, more lay-led and clergy-supported, and less institutional and more relational. So I think those are important things to sort of kind of pull together what John and Shirley said. I wanted to take just a minute and report on sort of the business aspect, the formal business part. The budget John mentioned was adopted as written, without amendment by council. We also voted on 6 resolutions. The first being a resolution to amend the Constitution of the Diocese. This was purely to add language to codify conducting the business of the diocese during an emergency. So something like COVID or civil unrest or extreme weather events. So it codifies into canon the capacity of the diocese to conduct business virtually. The second was a fairly straightforward amendment to the Appleton Board of Governors. Appleton is a ministry of the diocese that's actually governed by canon. And so to make some modifications to the composition of the Board of Governors, they needed a canonical resolution. The other 4 were taken up by the Committee on Community Relationships. The first 2 were twins, if you will. These were a resolution speaking for the diocese and a resolution for referral to diocesan council to address, to take a position on the current spate of legislation that we're seeing, restricting the ability of, restricting medical profession and parents from making some decisions about the treatment of transgender minors. So both of these went through some amendment in committee, moved some language from the text of the resolution to the text of the explanation for the resolution, but both were passed by council as amended. The third was a resolution to establish a task force for mental wellness, a 16-member task force to focus on how the church can be a presence, a healing presence in the current, what is seen now as a crisis of mental health, particularly among people of color, young adults, LGBT people, and neurodivergent people. So, and then the last was another resolution, this one directed at Georgia's senators and congressional representatives, calling on them not to support legislation that would eliminate funding for critical HIV/AIDS, last gasp, if you will, financial and other forms of support. So those were the actions actually voted on, official resolutions and budgetary action that took place. The rest of it, I think, are, I'll let Angela speak to her perspective. But I'll just say that it was it's always an interesting and productive experience to attend annual council. And if you haven't ever stepped forward to be a delegate to council, I would encourage you at some point to do so, because it's really wonderful to see so many people come together and have meaningful and robust discussions, and then reach a consensus, or at least reach a vote on things that it's important for the church to say.
Thank you. Let me see where I can fill in the gaps. There was a flyer in our packet that indicated that mental health first aid training is available now for a couple people in the diocese. It's something I've been talking about here off and on for the past 5 years. The emergency response team talked about it as well. So now there's a group, and so the point of that is to train people to be aware of different signs and symptoms people may be having, be it depression, suicide ideology, all sorts of things like that, and to form a team of people to respond, to be a support to the individual as well as any family members. I think that's an important thing for us to take advantage of. I like going to annual council. I like things like that. I love going to general convention, because you just get to see the broader way in which the church functions. And so I just love it. It was a little bit challenging this time because of other things here, wedding rehearsal, wedding yesterday, preaching 3 times today, platinum anniversary folks after the 10:30 service, but the Lord provided. I said I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So I went to the same, call it a breakout session that Sarah did. And my takeaway from that is I've included some things in my sermon. One was that, and I can't remember if Sally said this in that session or if it was prior to, the new habit for people is to come to church once every 4 to 6 weeks. So when you think if people are now coming once every 4 to 6 weeks, of course there's going to appear to be a diminishment. But she talked about the importance of vitality. So asking that, so there are 5 different areas that I included in my sermon that she said to look for vitality within a congregation. It's not about the numbers, it's about whether or not a difference is being made within that community and then beyond the community. The resolutions, I was at first disappointed because I thought these look like it's just going to sail through, because I like the debate part of the discussion, the controversy. But Juliana participated and was a catalyst to some conversation. She proposed that something be restored. It was voted down, but it got people talking. So I like things like that about the church. It's not just people coming together and it's the rubber stamp and you kind of go home. And I think it speaks to the ethos of the Episcopal Church that we are able to gather in a fashion and people have different opinions. But then at the end, we take a vote and we agree. And the bishop reminded us not to applaud when these things were passed because it was out of order, to show any type of an expression one way or the other. They used, I don't know if John mentioned video technology, so on the screen we could see the percentage of people voting yay and nay for different things. And so, yay! There's a time to applaud and be joyous, but now it's not. We have elected people to talk about the election standing committee. Okay, standing committee elected one person, African-American man, and then Michael Board. It was 2 slots to be filled, but it was 2 people to be considered. We voted, although that was just by acclamation. There was no competition there. And then there was a 3rd one. No,
Discipline.
No, that wasn't. But it was the other. It was the lay order of the standing committee. The lay order of the standing committee. They elected a Latina woman from Cathedral of St. Philip. So there are 2 new members of the standing committee who are people of color. Now, in terms of serving as a delegate, I want to thank Ken and John. Your term has now ended. It's a 3-year term. So 3 years, it may seem like a lot, but it gives a person an opportunity to go the first time. It's 2 days, kind of get your feet wet. And then by the time you get to the 3rd one, you're a pro. So consider that, whether or not you want to put yourself forward. We need 4 delegates right now and an alternate. And so we'll be talking about that most likely at the annual meeting. The canons say that persons may be elected either at the church's annual meeting or from the district. Camp Michael, they gave an update that they are in a capital campaign. Their goal is $7 million. Right now, it's just so, like I said, 1.2 million. 1.6. They have a long way to go, but they're working with a professional person, right, with development to raise funds. And so they are encouraging all congregations to take part in this. So I have in mind that perhaps as we move toward Parish Weekend next year, we may have a concerted effort to collect money to make our contribution at St. Bart's towards the ongoing renovation of Camp Michael.
Now, some of the visuals that they showed were, they have a pavilion plan, they have outdoor education. Sorry to jump in here, I'm not interfering, but they have a pavilion, they showed us visuals for the outdoor education area, which will include like a kitchen and just some catering. And then for the retreat village, completely renovating it, so they'll have buildings that kind of jut out over the river, but they're discreet. I can't remember exactly how many they had planned, but it looks really, really wonderful. So I think that's something we might really want to get behind, because we've enjoyed Camp Michael for so long. But then the other aspect that I wanted to mention was, I understand that there are not that many children of color that attend the camp, and I'm just wondering if we could get some kind of commitment that there will be a real effort made to be more inclusive. So as we make a financial commitment, we ask for a commitment on their part to make the camper population, to make it more welcoming for children of color. Just a thought.
Questions of any of us?
Perhaps that could be our contribution to Camp Michael. It's some sort of initiative or a scholarship or a program that we fund or help fund that does more outreach to increase the inclusivity of the attendees.
It's not something. Ken?
I was not a counsel because I was under the weather, as you know. I'm curious about the resolution related to medical care. Can you give us a little bit of background on the politics or whatever might have been involved in moving that piece from the text of the resolution to the background? Because to me, making a statement about our baptismal covenant made it much more of a faith-based statement than just the political statement of this is what we want. And I think that made it much more powerful, but what was the rationale?
So the initial text of 3 of the resolutions, the 2 about the LGBT and the transgender children in particular, and the resolution regarding legislation stripping funds from HIV/AIDS care, initially began with a paragraph that basically says, we acknowledge the vows of our baptismal covenant, respect the dignity of every human being, and seek to serve Christ in all persons, and the language stating that our canons forbid discrimination on the basis of any interpersonal characteristic. Because I had some long conversations with the person who submitted these resolutions, part of his hope in submitting that language was to make it clear to the parties who received the resolution that we believe these legislation regarding transgender children, specifically right now, is an infringement on our religious belief and our right to practice our religion and our faith as we understand it. The politics of that were just that one person in the committee's guidance was that it basically just the committee became convinced or persuaded or came to the consensus that it was just as beneficial to put that language in the explanation. What used to be the whereases of a resolution, which now is separated somewhat more called an explanation, that it would carry just as much weight there. I will say as an individual, as Angela noted, I spoke in opposition to that because I disagree, but that's where we landed. And the final one that was regarding HIV basically is to pointing out that there have been proposed legislation in this United States House of Representatives eliminating funding for programs serving people living with HIV/AIDS and such as the housing opportunities for people and the Ryan White programs. And so that final resolution takes the position that those are critical programs and they should not be unfunded. So it's less about us as Episcopalians being able to exercise our faith, but the first two, for the state legislation, and the one that got referred to diocesan council, contain an element of making the case that our ability to practice our faith is being constrained by the actions of that legislation. That is a violation of our Constitution.
Can I say something about the mental wellness resolution? It was really it's going to be really brief, but it was really important to me. The resolution on mental wellness is the language that was added was people who are neurodivergent, which is certainly my case, but this includes people with autism spectrum. In my case, it's ADHD. There's just a whole bunch of people that are included in this neurodivergent language, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, I felt seen, you know. So I think that was a really important thing to add, and that was, so in the resolution on mental wellness, we just added neurodivergent Episcopalians. Does that, anybody have a question about that on the language or anything?
Any other questions?
Can I add one other thing? Sorry. So in the congregational vitality, there's a whole program that our diocese has, and I'm not sure how much of it's free, but it includes congregational assessment, strategic planning, tools for implementation, and then evaluation. I know I have a friend who goes to St. Patrick's, and they've used this. They've used several of these tools, and it's really helped them. So this is kind of, it has a life cycle, and you can go to the diocesan website and find this. But anybody who wants to see, and there's more details on the back.
Questions?
Yeah.
Where does the search stand for the new director of Camp Michael?
They have an interim in place right now, who just started a few months ago, Hazel Glover.
Oh.
So I don't know what the time frame is, but they have an interim in place.
Do we know anything? Hazel Glover, who is she? Or?
Long-term priest in the diocese, retired from
Noonan and Carrollton.
Noonan.
Did you know?
Yes.
In several places.
But last in Noonan.
Oh, well, good. And then there will be a search. So there's,
Yes.
yeah, all right.
So things are moving forward. I think it's a great choice for her to be in that position. Sarah, I'm sorry, I think your time is concluding as well. So I think you were with this group initially, so I want to thank you for your service.
Well, this is only my second.
It's only the second?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Two-thirds of that.
you can come back.
I would like to.
Okay.
If possible.
You can't leave yet.
Can't leave yet. Sorry.
It's really true, you know, like last time I went was at Holy Comforter, no, not Holy Innocents. It was this huge room, and so many people, and lots going on. And this time it was at St. Philip's, and so it was really, really crowded, and all these rows of people, but at least I felt like I knew more people, and I saw Ben Wells. And I sat next to
Liz.
Yeah, so I got a chance to catch up with her, but anyway.
Now you should say we bring back meetings from Ben, Arthur, Mark, Liz, and I saw Riley Dugan and Christian Gould there, so.
And there were people from St. Catherine's, their director is pretty active in the diocese. So I saw several people on their dismantling racism committee. It was really good to see. There wasn't a lot more inclusion of people of color, Latino people and people of color. So it was very encouraging.
I think the diocese has had a long-standing inclusion for Latinx folks, having the liturgy in Spanish and English, and just that they spend a lot of money on making for vocational development, and also ordaining priests and deacons. And one person was recognized for their basically mission work in establishing congregations over several years. So he's an older priest, now retired, and so that's something that's been ongoing for a while.
One thing I wanted to add about, there's always a service project. At the end, it's a little unfortunate because by that time people were just so aggravated, they want to get out of there. But this time it was packing backpacks for children who had to go into foster care. So it was called the First Night Project, I believe, First Night Nights. It was just to provide some things in a backpack, and a nice backpack that might be comforting, and also to include a note. So it was divided into several rooms, depending on the age of the children. I went to high school first because I felt like, well, I went through that some in my high school experience, so because I just felt drawn to that because I knew that would be really important. It was a really nice service project. I think last year, I can't remember what it was. It was something to do with providing the ingredients for a cooking project. I can't even remember who it went to, but again, it's just a nice way to kind of bring people together and work together on something that I found important. And the bishop always gets involved. It's just nice to know that he's not just talking the talk, but he's walking the talk as well.
Anybody else? Thank you all so much for the report.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
And for your service.
Our pleasure.